Hello, people of YouTube land. Hello to those that are part of the former Courage Crew community members' discords, since everybody has separate discords now.
Yeah.
Jesus. And the people who follow Ted and I on Twitch, and hello to whomever is listening to this on Spotify or wherever else we decide to put this on. I'm Traductus.
I'm Ted.
And this is the movie review podcast.
Suddenly untitled movie review podcast, yeah.
Yes. Untitled movie where we take a director's filmography and review each movie one by one and go over the background info, and we talk about what we like and dislike about the movie. And as you can see, we are still covering Sam Raimi's filmography, and today we are oddly covering a Western, and that is The Quick and the Dead. Released on February 10th, 1995, with a budget of $35 million, The Quick and the Dead made $47 million at the box office. Unlike Raimi's previous films, this project actually does not originate with him, so it wasn't his idea to direct this. Now, this actually ends up starting from a screenwriter by the name of Simon Moore, who was a big fan of spaghetti westerns, which are, if you don't know what spaghetti westerns are, they're low-budget Italian-made westerns known for their low budget and gritty tone, and also the fact that a lot of these have Clint Eastwood in them. And when he was writing the script, he had an idea: what if Clint Eastwood's characters in like movies such as The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly or Fistful of Dollars, what if Clint Eastwood's character was a woman, and how would that affect the story, and how would a woman navigate within that type of world? After the script was finished, Sony bought the rights to the script and immediately cast Sharon Stone for the main role, right after her success in the movie Basic Instinct. And when she signed on not only for the lead protagonist, but also as co-producer. And it was her decision to bring in Sam Raimi due to the fact that she was impressed with his work in Army of Darkness and felt that he would be perfect for the campy tone of the film. That being said, this movie kind of has sort of an ensemble cast. Like, would you agree, Ted?
Kinda?
Like, it's not like main lead people, but like
it's not ensemble like the Brat Pack. It's not ensemble like everyone's a lead, but everyone in this is super notable.
Right. Even if like they weren't notable at the time they became notable.
Yeah.
Like the notable ones during this time would be like Gary Sinise, Lance Hendrickson, Keith David, Kevin Conway. If you don't know who Kevin Conway is, he is the mailman in the movie Funny Farm, starring Chevy Chase. He's also in Gettysburg as like a Irish soldier that's fighting alongside Jeff Daniels. We also have Pat Hingle, who's like in every frickin' Western from like the 70s on. He's best known to me as the judge in the Clint Eastwood movie Hang 'em High. And we also have Gene Hackman as the main villain. And due to him like being cast, the location had to be switched from New Mexico to Tucson, Arizona. But also, as I was saying, there are like fairly unknown actors that end up, or at least unknown at the time, that end up being in this movie, such as Tobin Bell, who you would know as Jigsaw. He has a role in this. Same with Mark Boone Jr., who plays Bobby Munson in Sons of Anarchy. God. And we also have a 19-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio and Russell Crowe in his first starring role in an American film. What's funny is that Sony was hesitant to cast Leo due to quote unquote his lack of experience, which is laughable because like prior to this, he was in a starring role in the movie This Boy's Life, had a prominent supporting role in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and he was also in The Basketball Diaries. But, you know,
Gilbert Grape is the absolute one that you're like, what the fuck do you mean inexperienced? Right? Like, the other one's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But Gilbert Grape, dude, come on now.
right. And Sharon Stone was able to convince Sony to cast Leo when she offered to pay him out of pocket. Other people who auditioned for the role were Matt Damon and Sam Rockwell.
Matt Damon's super interesting because I feel like Leo brings some spunk that Matt Damon doesn't.
Right.
Not that I think he would have been bad, just not the same.
It's kind of hard to see this role not being Leonardo DiCaprio, just because, like...
The way it gets portrayed, absolutely. Yeah.
That being said, Russell Crowe, he originally auditioned for a different role. I couldn't figure out which one it was. However, Sharon Stone saw like a movie that he was in previously and felt like he was leading man material. And so she cast him as the former outlaw turned preacher Court, who, you know, has like a big role in this. He's basically like the main supporting good guy in this.
I would say he's third fiddle to the whole plot, like the sidekick to the hero kind of thing. Yeah, I guess.
And however, Sony also took issue with this, preferring a more well-known actor for the role. However, Sharon Stone, being co-producer, was like, "Fuck you! Like, if he's not cast in this role, I'm leaving the project."
I honestly like hearing all of this in this fashion rather than just Sharon Stone was co-producer gives me a lot of respect because it's very clear with all of this that she absolutely had a vision and it worked.
Right. That being said, what's also funny is that due to her like casting Sam Raimi as a director, the person that wrote the script was actually super stoked because he was like a huge fan of the Evil Dead trilogy. But with that all being said, Ted, we'll go over the plot.
All right. You're going to have to bear with me because it's been quite some fucking time since we've seen this, so I'm going to boil it down. Realistically, I think we're 5 weeks out from watching the recording, so hold out on me. Essentially, if we're going on what you know by the end, that's because that's how I'm going to do this. Small girl has her father murdered by a guy who ends up being the best shooter of all time forever, the unkillable god boss of shooting guns in the wild, wild west. This god boss decides to host a tournament every year so he can kill all of his rivals. And so it's just a 1v1 old western fucking duel in a tournament style where she's out to kill him. And there's some like discrepancy between all of the characters who are trying to murder each other. Yeah, we're boiling it down that way. That's how I'm gonna go with it.
How I would describe it, you know?
Yeah.
I guess we'll go into likes and dislikes.
Sure. Honestly, I think likes is a longer list, and I'd kind of really like to start there, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. I like how every character, even if it's like a bit part, either has like something like notable about them, but also has a little bit of motivation why they're in the tournament.
It's similar to that. I also want to say that it's super helpful having that like cast of characters, right? That like for a second, let's ignore Sharon Stone, let's ignore the main sidekick, let's enjoy the god boss, and let's ignore DiCaprio, right? Those characters are meant to be characters regardless of who's portraying them.
Right.
I think all of the other characters that are in this are still memorable, whether you recognize them or not, because they give every character a reason to be meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, like, the person that plays, like, the Native American that enters in this, like, I don't know what else he's been in. Like, he doesn't have, like, a Wikipedia entry and stuff, but, like, he's extremely notable, and it's funny, like, his entire freaking, motivation to go to this tournament is to kill white people.
So there's the Native American, right? There's the guy who won the battle. I know it's not the Battle of the Alamo, but it's some other significant like war that he won all by himself with his shooting prowess, right? There are guys with like physical traits. There are guys with like historical aspects, and they do a great job of like incorporating the history of that character without making a gigantic fucking Quentin Tarantino cutaway that is an entire movie's worth of description to give you that background, right? Like, every character you watch fire a gun in this duel has a background story that you do not care to watch, but it is enough that they give you to be memorable. I think they do a flawless job with that, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like, just even like the dialogue with some of the the side characters are great. Like, especially like when you're introduced to you're introduced to like Keith David's character before a little bit, but like when he finally says like a actual memorable line, they ask him, it's like, how do you spell your name? And he goes, correctly.
Yeah. Like there's enough gist to the characters that they all matter this much to you, and then when they inevitably die, because again, I'm ignoring the 4 main characters for the purpose of this tournament, like again, you still know who's dying, right? I think even in watching the movie, there's maybe one that is forgettable, but like again, they use him to establish the villain, right? Like it's really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Lance Hendrickson's a little, like forgettable. I mean, he has his death is pretty freaking brutal as shit, but
again, he's used to establish the villain, right? Like it's not he isn't important. It's the development of what is important, and I think that's very valuable and hard to write. Like it was well done.
That being said, I guess we could go with like the duels themselves. Like those are pretty well shot.
I kind of want to get to this with like an overarching point. Like it's on my list, but like I have a positive here, which is the campiness of it. Right? This movie is never intended to be a well-written movie, right?
Right.
It is in fact well written. Don't get me wrong, but right, like going into this, the idea of the fun behind it is the camp, right? Is the I know the good guy's gonna win, and how does it happen? And let's shoot a couple people in the process, and let's add some drama in the process that's funny and short and sweet and gets to the point, right? Like 100%, this is campy. In the duels themselves, giving you the character background just to murder them off is like the entire fucking premise of the goddamn fucking film. So the idea that they can make it meaningful while also just like, we're gonna fucking kill him anyway, is hilariously campy, right? Like and in a very positive way, that it is campy, but they buy into it and they write a plot around it being absolute fucking camp. And to your point, Stallman, the duels are well done. They're exactly as graphic as they need to be without being a fucking gore scene, right? But also they add enough drama and enough to the moment that like it can still be hilariously goofy while also meaning things to the plot. Like,
yeah, I mean, and some of them are like really freaking like intense, such as like the duel between Gene Hackman and Leo.
Yeah,
like that one really hurt. That one's like extremely emotional, and again, it even adds to like Gene Hackman's character.
Yeah.
Should we go over Gene Hackman's and like Leo's portrayals? All right, I think Gene Hackman's freaking great in this. Like as the villain, like he is so freaking evil, but he's not just only evil. He has like depth to his evilness.
Yeah,
because like when he kills, like, because he trays. Because Leonardo DiCaprio is basically his son, but might not be his son. Like, it's implied that since Gene Hackman's wife was unfaithful, it could be like a farmer's kid. So therefore, Gene Hackman hasn't really like fully accepted him as his son. So therefore, Leonardo DiCaprio enters the tournament to earn his father's respect. Which there's numerous times where Gene Hackman tells him to like leave the fucking tournament. And then it ends up having like Gene Hackman ends up shooting him dead. And then even for how evil like Gene Hackman is, Gene Hackman even still feels like it's like the only time you see any sort of remorse from him, where he even feels uncomfortable that he just like shot someone that is quite possibly his son dead.
And to that point, right, like they're still developing Hackman's character, first off with the remorse that he shows physically, but also the idea that like he's told him to get out of the tournament multiple times, and they're adding to it in dialogue after the fact, and like especially in the scene with Sharon Stone where he's explaining that this is the opportunity to kill his rivals, where he feels like his son might come for him and he kills him anyway because I need to be the best forever, right?
Right.
Like, even then, like I think the development of things is good, and they still manage to keep the camp while adding a dramatic story. Like it's I don't know how they managed to buy all of this I don't want to say drama into the camp, but goddamn, they do it.
And also, Leo's performance in this is damn good. Like, even though it is in some cases kind of like a stereotypical like Leo performance, but there's parts where he's actually like acting serious, such as like the scene where Russell Crowe gets his gun. Like, he goes from, like, you know, like your stereotypical, like, hammy Leonardo DiCaprio performance. But when it comes to, like, the end of it, he tells, like, Russell Crowe, he goes, it's like, this gun shoots straight. It shoots straight. I wouldn't sell it if it didn't.
And I think, too, that, like, not only does DiCaprio hit his role really well, and you kind of, like, pay attention to DiCaprio because he's the most recognizable face, but I think a lot of the actors in this do really well, to be honest. Like, every role you can buy into their scenario. There's nobody that stands out as being like, okay, you're a fucking sore thumb, you shithead.
Yeah, what's really funny, though, is that, let's just say, a spoiler, in this film, Leonardo DiCaprio and Sharon Stone, like, hook up. But the thing that's hilarious is that, I saw a YouTube comment for, like, the scene where, like, Leonardo DiCaprio dies. The YouTube comment was, and then from that day forward, Leonardo DiCaprio stopped going after older women.
real as hell.
But also, go to, like, Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe does a damn good job as well.
Yeah, again, all of the actors do a really good job. I think, genuinely, it's crazy to me that I think Sharon Stone is the weakest performance.
Yeah, but even then, like, I like her character because, like, a lot of cases where you have, like, a woman lead, they try to make, like, women, like, lead characters as, like, ultimate badasses. Kind of like a Steven Seagal film where, like, they have no weakness. They're just badass 100%. Well, in this, like, she actually goes through, like, different emotions where she's actually, like, scared for her life. She's not necessarily perfect with everything she does.
And I would also argue that, like, the weakest parts of the performance are she's aloof and trying to avoid people. Not even that, like, it's bad acting actively. It's just they're bad at being nonchalant. Right? And, like, right. I mean, again, Sharon Stone does a great job. Don't get me wrong. I think she is the weakest performance in a really, really strong performance.
Yeah. I just glad that they just made her character, like, human as opposed to superhuman, you know? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, she obviously, like, is a crack shot, but...
yeah.
But, like, she's human and vulnerable, as, like, a lot of good protagonists should be.
Yeah, I mean, there's several instances in which she, like, expresses fear, expresses doubt, expresses a level of humanity that like, I think it becomes a very human performance. It's really, really good.
I guess we could also go from, like, shooting, like, the camera work. Like, I mean, it's Sam Raimi, of course it's gonna be, like, good.
Fair.
But, like, you have anything to add to that? Like,
I think they chose the right angle all of the time. The sound, okay, if we're gonna break into cinematography, lighting was fine, but it's mostly outdoors, so it's an easy movie to light. Music is pretty easy because it's a Western, right? The camera work is, like Stallman said, it's going to be on par because it's a Sam Raimi film. Of course it fucking is, right? I think that they added a lot to the progression of the story by what camera angle they chose and when. So the best example that I can remember from, again, 5 fucking weeks ago, is the first duel that the villain gets into, right? He's put a bullet through his opponent's head in their duel. And they do a very good job.
That's the second one.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It is. No, absolutely. You're right. It is the second one, right? And they do a very good job at, like, you heard the shot go off and you don't know where it is. You're panning up the bad guy's back, who's still standing, gun drawn, like full in stance. And then they get to the back of his head and there's a hole through it, right? And and like, again, if you're playing a realistic movie out, there's a scene for fucking gore and blood drawing and whatever, but no, it's a very clean hole that the camera pans through so that you can see immediately through it to see the stance of the bad guy, and then the dude falls over, right? Like, they choose the right camera angle all the fucking time. And while it may not be the most difficult genre to pull that off in, I think you can definitely see the art that Raimi brings to even a Western, which is very clearly outside of his element based on the filmography we have so far. Yeah,
absolutely. You have anything else to add?
I think that's mostly it for likes. And honestly, my dislikes are pretty small. I think that they do a lot of work into romanticizing the duels. It's interesting because the duels do a majority of the plot carrying, right?
Yeah, they do.
But even if you have to focus on the duels in that element, they do a lot of work that is make the duels look really cool so kids want to duel too. And it's in an almost uncomfortable way. I would say this is pretty minor. And again, I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but like, we have to watch as critics and not necessarily as like, sit down, let me get shit-faced and entertained, right? So the way that they romanticize the duels feels a little bizarre when you're watching for things to either enjoy or not enjoy. I think it's probably ignorable in the grand scheme of things, but paying attention to it makes me a little uncomfortable. I think as much as I have to say positive about how campy this film was, right? I think that they add a level of drama that isn't always necessary.
Yeah, it does. There are parts where it's like very campy and then it gets very serious. And it is kind of jarring going between the two at times.
And more of that issue to me is just that they stretch the plot lines to be unnecessary, right? Grand scheme of things in writing this movie, the guy that we called Third Fiddle, whose name I can't fucking remember now that I need to reference him.
Russell Crowe, yes. Whose name's Court.
Yeah, thank you. So, in the grand scheme of things, they just could have made him a benevolent character. Right? But instead, they had to give him this whole side plot line of, we used to rob banks together, and then he decided he hated me, and now I'm against him, and I'll never shoot a gun again, except now I'm shooting a gun now again. And it's just dramatic in a way that doesn't need to be. It doesn't excel the plot. It just becomes dramatic for the sake of, I guess we need to add some suspense.
Right.
I won't say that it doesn't add to Court's character, but also,
I mean, I do like the fact that he's forced into the tournament. So, like,
but also you could just make him benevolent good guy, right?
Right.
Like, it's not a complete detraction, but also it's unnecessary, and it takes away from the camp a little bit to be as dramatic as it is.
I'm just glad that, even though that it's in the European version, there was like filmed a romantic subplot between Sharon Stone and Russell Crowe, but Sharon Stone for the theatrical cut and for the United States was like, it makes zero sense for them to be like romantically involved.
And I kind of agree with Sharon Stone here in the idea that you're just adding another fucking dramatic plot for the sake of adding a dramatic plot. If it happened, it would have felt very stereotypical Hollywood, so I'm okay with it that it didn't. If it did, whatever, I guess. Yeah. But also, it would have added more unnecessary drama to a thing that was enjoyable because of the camp.
Yeah, in all honesty, that's kind of my biggest gripe with the movie, is that of how predictable it is, because you can basically tell who's going to, get through the tournament.
Yeah,
and who's not,
and so I while that is my last negative, I am going to detract from a little bit. I'm going to add some qualifiers, right? When people are names joining for the tournament and they add some variety in terms of whoever duels whoever else is the first round, right? Whoever challenges who, it's not like a predetermined the 4 characters they let us know to recognize are in the 4 corners of the bracket, right? They do feel like they add some sense of quote-unquote randomness to it. But also, we introduced you to these characters. This guy's clearly the good guy. This guy's clearly very important. This guy is the bad guy. This is the bad guy's son. You can sit there and skip the next 45 minutes of movie and know that, oh shit, what a surprise. Those 4 people are the ones that lived so far, right? I'm not here to compare every movie with a conflict to Rocky. Don't get me wrong. But also, I think Rocky should be a stereotype in terms of, we don't need the good guy to win every time, right?
Right.
And I think that, yes, the campiness helps with the idea that this is predictable, but also, dude, come the fuck on.
I mean, that's what makes the first Rocky the best one out of them all, because he doesn't win.
Right. But that's just what I'm saying. They're I'm Leo DiCaprio, and also, I'm the bad guy's son. I'm gonna show him I'm better than he is. Boy, I wonder if the 2 of them might go head-to-head in a pivotal point of this fucking movie. Hey, I'm the woman who's trying to kill the bad guy, and I'm only here because I need to show off that I can kill the fucking bad guy. Hey, the bad guy really fucking hates me. I have to live forever. I won't shoot a gun ever again. Oh, fuck, I shot a gun. Now what? It's super fucking predictable, even though they do a good job at giving you, that half a background for the other fucking 8 characters who fire a gun in this movie, right? Dude, come on. Nobody gave a shit about them because you put way too much of his shit into the 4 who lived, right?
Right.
If as a hypothetical, right? Let's say we don't focus on Sharon Stone. If we give all 8 characters the reason to feel like they're the main plot line forever, right? You have no idea Sharon Stone's the main fucking character. Not fucking one. And I think that adds some suspense to the movie that makes it a more oh shit, what if, right? They introduce Sharon Stone first and foremost, and I guess she's gonna be the hero at the end of the movie who kills the fucking bad guy.
Right.
I also think that, even as she, quote unquote, leaves the tournament and ends up coming back, hey, spoiler alert, she gets fucking shot. She's gonna fucking die. And you go, no, she isn't. Wonder how she gets out of this one. And you're just waiting for Sharon Stone again because of the way the movie, it's so fucking good guys always win. And
yeah.
Fuck it, dude. Come on now. Be a little creative.
But that being said, I guess we'll go into rankings if you don't have anything else. Because, that's literally my only, gripe is how freaking predictable it is.
Yeah, man, that's it for me. I'm cool to get into rankings. For me, I think this one's first.
Really?
I recognize that that's bold, but even with my dislikes, I feel like this was a fun watch. Army of Darkness was also fun. It was a good movie. I would argue that it is better produced than this movie. I think that quality-wise, if I'm going to look at it objectively and not through my own prism, I think Army of Darkness probably ends up higher. The reason I put Quick and the Dead higher is because I can ignore the things that I dislike because the camp is to the perfect level. This is simply enjoyable. It is a premise that nobody hates or gets mad at. Like, I think this just hits a very sweet spot of, I'm finding my groove. Nothing about this is actively wrong. It's just it. This just hits the fucking spot. This is it.
I was not expecting that. I mean, the reasoning's pretty good, but like, I was really not expecting you to put it that high. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's first. I don't have, like, if I'm going to put it anywhere but first, it's second behind Army of Darkness, and I think I just have more reasons for Quick and the Dead.
Wow. Now I feel like the asshole for putting it third.
No, I don't think so. Again, it's objectively not the best movie on this list that we've watched. No judgment at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Army of Darkness and Evil Dead are better, but I think that just because I just think that they're more worth of like a rewatch, while when it comes to like the Quick and the Dead, I find myself more like interested in watching like YouTube videos of the duels as opposed to watching the entire movie, if that makes sense.
More than fair. Yeah.
And with that being said, like, it's definitely well put together and more cohesive than Darkman or anything, all the other movies.
Sure.
Like the tone, like, even though there is a little bit of a jarring tone between campy and seriousness, it's not as jarring as it was like in Darkman.
Sure, I can get behind that. It's not his objectively best movie, but I think this one is the best watching experience so far as a complete whole.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
All right.
And that being said, the next is A Simple Plan, not to be confused with the pop punk band.
Pop punk is an insult to pop punk everywhere. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys for watching this one. We're going to continue Sam Raimi. We're going to keep going despite the changes to the YouTube. Obviously, you're still going to find this right fucking here since you're watching this one. As always, thank you for watching. We appreciate you checking this one out, and we'll be right back here next week. We've got some fun Christmas plans coming up. I recognize that by the time this posts, this seems well in advance, but like, we got to get our shit together. So just know that there are fun Christmas plans in the future coming up very soon for a thing we've hinted at several times on this podcast. As always, if you're interested in our content, there are plenty more movie podcasts to get through, but there's an entire other YouTube fucking algorithm here of videos that I have scoured through for the YouTube changes. I hate how much time I've spent on this already and how much more time I have to put in, so please go appreciate everything we've posted on this channel. And if you're interested in our individual content, you can check us both out on Twitch, Stallman at Productus, myself at Ted Green Eagles. Thank you guys again for watching. We appreciate it. We will see you here next week with A Simple Plan. Have a good one.